Greetings and welcome to Second Breakfast, the second most important meal of the day. I'm Sean.
I'm Jason. And Sean, what are we having for second breakfast today?
Well, today for Second Breakfast, we are talking about the second episode of Amazon's original series, The Rings of Power. This one is a little bit different from episode 1 in that we're no longer live. Episode 1 we did live. We are not live this time.
Yeah, we were actually able to digest it a bit.
Yeah, we were able to digest it a bit, think about it a bit, and also watch it multiple times.
Yeah, I think I watched it 4 times.
I've seen it twice now. Yeah, we want to, I mean, first of all, I want to thank everybody for like hanging out during the live episode we did.
The impromptu
for
live
the first
episode.
one, the impromptu live episode that we did to start things off. I am very excited for people to listen. I think there were a couple people in chat that just tuned in because it was a live thing, and now we're kind of like, you know what? We actually want to watch Rings of Power, you know?
Yeah, some like fans of the stream were just checking it out just to support the stream, and now they're hooked. So,
which is very cool.
Yeah, it's honestly best case scenario.
Let's start off like we did last time. Let's just start off with overall thoughts about episode 2, and then we'll dive into the more specific storylines. Jason, after 4 viewings, how do you feel about episode 2 of Rings of Power?
Dude, I say it's a 10 out of 10 episode.
Yeah?
Straight up.
Yeah?
10 out of 10 episode. I don't think there was a single scene, even having watched it multiple times, where I was like, oh my god, this scene or whatever.
Yeah.
When we were watching live, we were talking about it a little bit afterward because we didn't do like a full podcast. But this episode, whenever you're watching a show that has multiple storylines, so most shows, I feel like there's always that one that you care about more, and then when it swaps to the other one, you're like, this again, right?
Yeah.
You just want to get back to the other one, which I think is fine, because I think that's fine in television as well, because it just makes you like the other one even more. But with this show, it's just all bangers. Every single time it would swap scene, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to see more about this. Every single time.
Every time.
This episode was just so good. It had like multiple things that were like scary, lots of tension. There was still like good comedy in it. Not a ton, but there was some, and it was good. Yeah, it was just so good.
Yeah, I thought this episode was great as well. I tweeted after we recorded last night that I thought we had 2 10 out of 10 episodes to start us off. So I'm very happy. I think I like the pilot a little bit more than this episode, which I think you and I are flipped on.
Yeah, I would say the first episode was like a 9. Like, I don't really have anything that I'm like really against, but I didn't feel like it has as many like moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, this was like my favorite freaking thing, right? Whereas I feel like this one has some more standout moments where I'm just completely enthralled like the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. The first one definitely is the one that is trying to like suck you in. I think I just really enjoyed like the interactions with Galadriel and Elrond and Gil-galad and all the elves, and I think that's the kind of stuff that you know what it is? I think this episode had less Galadriel. I think that's why I like the first one more. The ongoing segment of Second Breakfast, Sean is down bad for Galadriel. But yeah, no, I think I still think it's another 10 out of 10 episode. I'm really, really enjoying it so far. And even after a second viewing, I don't think that like, and a second viewing that really isn't that long after the first one, less than 24 hours.
I mean, having seen it like 4 times, there are definitely more things that I'm like not as super high on, but like even first, second, third, I'm just like, okay, like this is just crazy good. Like,
yeah,
I'm looking for things to talk about in these episodes where I'm like, I don't really like this. Like, I have some ideas, I have some thoughts and stuff, but it's just more of like an overall thing as opposed to like specifically this episode.
I want to start off this episode by saying that we have an intro now. Not this podcast, although this podcast does have an intro, but the show has an intro, which we did not get in the first episode.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about the intro?
I like it. I feel like with how simple it is, I think it's a bit overly long, honestly.
Yeah.
But I love the theme so much. And it does like harken back to, okay, there's like a spot where it shows like a bunch of like rings basically, and then
Yeah.
the tree of like Numenor and like a bunch of different things like that, right?
Hmm.
But then there's just some that's just like geometric shapes and stuff, and it feels a little long, like maybe like 15 seconds too long for me. But
Hmm.
I like it, and the main theme is so good. I love the main theme, the melody.
It's the best part, I think, of the intro is the main
Yeah,
theme,
yeah.
Howard Shore's main theme, which I I don't think is in the first episode,
I don't think so.
which is kind of crazy that they held back on that. I think that's kind of a sign of almost respect to Bear McCreary, as he's doing the full soundtrack, even though Howard Shore came in to do the intro theme.
Hmm.
Like, they gave the first episode to Bear McCreary, I think. I really don't think episode 2 has Howard Shore's theme in it, which I think is cool. I think I'm fine with that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think how they had that opened in episode 1 was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it uses Galadriel's theme during episode 1, which is what
Hmm.
one of Bear McCreary's pieces. The thing about this theme, the opening overall, I loved the opening theme. I think Game of Thrones mastered the fantasy opening sequence, and everybody wants to do something cool and elaborate, but not rip off Game of Thrones. And I
Hmm.
think they're missing out on what Game of Thrones did right in their opening. And I think Game of Thrones misses out on it in House of the Dragon as well. House of the Dragon is a cool opening, but I think they're kind of missing the point in that what's great about Game of Thrones' intro is it shows you the world. And you can
Hmm.
see where everybody is, and it gives you like you have symbols for the different characters, right? And you're like, okay, they're in King's Landing, they're up in the Wall, they're in Winterfell or whatever, and you see where they are in respect to themselves. And I think, or like in, you can see where things are compared to each other.
Hmm.
And I think what people took out of that is people love really complex, elaborate opening intros, which is true. And like, there's this,
Yeah.
there's a very elaborate sand intro with the different shapes happening here. Wheel of Time has lots of threads of different colors being woven together in its intro. And House of the Dragon has the Targaryen family tree being formed throughout its intro. And all of that stuff is cool and complex and has great music to back it up. But like, I kind of just want to see the Middle Earth map and like and see
Yeah.
it that way. And like, I think it helps.
If it transitioned from like map to like landscape over and over, like from map to landscape,
Yeah.
then map to landscape, then map to landscape, I think that'd be really cool.
Or have the sand form the map at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like, just because I think that is, I think people saw the Game of Thrones intro, like I said, and they thought people like this really elaborate thing where like the cities are being built up on the map. It's like, no, people like seeing the map, like people like, it makes the world feel like you know where things are. I really
Yeah.
don't know where any of these people are in, like, I know where they are, but in respect to each other, I could not place them on a map. I guess I could because I know the names, but like if it didn't have the names.
if you saw a map that didn't have the names but it had the locations, yeah, it'd be hard.
Whereas with Game of Thrones, I could place all those locations because of the intro that I watched for
Right,
60 something episodes.
Yeah, I think that's also a really good point, because one of the times, so like I watched it with 2 different friends, as well as watched it with you live.
Mm-hmm. And we watched it again a second time.
Yeah, that was something that they were very confused about, that I think the
Mhm.
show needs to do a better job of. And I think if they just did that with the intro, where it's hard to place where people are, right? And I think with season 1, if we see like a map type intro or something in season 2 or something, if enough things do happen in season 1, without
Mhm.
wanting to like spoil everybody on what's
Yeah,
gonna happen,
yeah.
I think if they did one in the second season, once some things have changed, that would make a bit more sense.
I really think it's people don't want to straight up rip off Game of Thrones.
I've never seen the intro for Game of Thrones, so I'm not sure. I think they do need to do a better job of showing people, because they did have in the first episode, but it's more of like a sweeping shot where you don't really, it's kind of hard to put it together, even like, especially on a first watch, right? As to where these things are in relation to one another.
Actually, I will give them props really quickly for something from Elrond storyline, which again we'll do what we did last episode, which we'll break down the different storylines in a few minutes. But something they did that is it kind of counters what we're saying right now, but the thing is they only did it once that I can remember. Is when we were watching the first time when they went to Khazad-dûm, I was kind of like, that was quick, because I missed the map transition because we were watching live and there were some technical things going on.
Right.
But when I was watching the second time, I realized they did that transition where you see where Eregion is, and then you see them like the path to Khazad-dûm. It's really not that far, and that immediately threw that out of my mind of like, because the first time we watched it, I was like, that was really quick. I was kind of worried because this is something that Game of Thrones got in trouble with later on, as people were moving everywhere really quickly, and it was like, I was like, how'd they get to Khazad-dûm so quick? But then watching it the second time with the map, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
But
I think if they do more of that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think that one is more the exception. Whereas, like,
because they don't do that all the time.
No one has really traveled anywhere though, except for, I guess,
Galadriel.
Galadriel, and then also like Bronwyn and Arondir. But they didn't really travel very far.
Like, where is Eregion and Khazad-dûm in relation to Lindon? I have no idea.
Lindon is where the Grey Havens are. So all the way, like if you're looking on the map, it's to the west.
They're all the way on the
west
side of,
So like there's the Misty Mountains, and Khazad-dûm is in the Misty Mountains in the middle, right? Okay. Then if you go like a little bit to the left, that's where Eregion is. And then even farther to the left and up the coast, that's where Lindon is.
Okay.
And then like where the Harfoots are is on the other side of the mountain.
And that is where that storyline hasn't really moved anywhere.
Right. And then to the south of there, over another mountain range, is where Arondir is. So it's like they're on so kind of different crazy sides of the map, right? Like, and then Galadriel is like the most southwest you can even be. Yeah. So,
well, it kind of forms a triangle then. With those three storylines, and then you've got just Galadriel all the way fucking down outside.
Yeah, basically.
Speaking of Galadriel, let's start there. Galadriel. Galadriel in this episode, we see her in the ocean for the entirety of the thing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was very well shot, all of the ocean sequences. There's a particular shot that I really enjoyed where she is swimming away from this sea monster, and the camera keeps bobbing like above and below the water.
Yeah.
And chaos is just wrecking behind her as it looks great. I really, really enjoyed that sequence.
Yeah, it was shot super good. I love the horror aspects that they keep bringing in where, you probably don't notice the person with their hair ripped out of their head the first time that they show the shot of everybody on the boat, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to see her first, right? And then time passes and they're like, so were you guys attacked? And like, attacked by what? And then they show the person who's ripped all their hair out because they're just so terrified, and you're like, oh my god. And then when you see the worm, it just I think it's really well done. I love the design of it. And I also like that they show enough of it. Because I think a lot of times you don't see enough of it. Even in like Pirates of the Caribbean, like you don't really like see a ton of the Kraken until like the very end, right? Which I think is that's a choice. But I like that you see enough of it, but not too much, where it still has a lot of mystery to it, and it's very scary in that way, but you do see enough to where it's not just a couple of fins,
Mm-hmm.
So no, I thought 100%. That was cool.
I think really the big takeaway from this episode with Galadriel is Halbrand. So Halbrand, I mean, what do you think of Halbrand? He's introduced in this episode, this guy who is apparently from the Southlands.
Yeah.
Which is where Arondir's storyline is taking place. Makes sense that he'd be running from the orcs there. Yeah. What do you think about him?
So, Halbrand, to me, like, first time watching, I'm like pegging him as like a kind of like Aragorn, where it's like he's probably kingly or something, or of royal lineage or something, or even just like a lord, right? Like not necessarily like a king, but like a lord of an area, right?
Yeah, so much like Aragorn. He looks like
I think
so
that's what they're
much.
trying to invoke for
Yeah.
sure, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I peg.
And he says, "My people have no king." You know, it's a little like, okay,
Right.
why not? You know.
Well, then the second time I watched it, after I was done watching, I kind of just left the screen for a second, and it like changed the screen that I was on from, because I had never really sat and watched through the whole credits or whatever. After the credits, it brings me to this page where it shows like all the different characters, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And you can like click through, and it's like, oh, these are the Numenorians, these are the Southlanders, these are the Harfoots, but for the Harfoots, it only has like Nori and Poppy or whatever, but. Like, it doesn't have every single character, just like the main ones, right?
Mm.
It did not have the Mysterious Man on there. For him, it says, like, a line basically saying that he's possibly running from his destiny, right?
Okay, so he's the Lost King that, like, was referred to in the first episode of
that they alluded to it, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, we've mentioned the line a couple of times from the first episode where Gil-galad is saying that, like, you know, the wind that is trying to blow out the ember can be the very one that spreads the fire, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How I think of it is 2 layers to it, right? Where in trying to send Galadriel to Valinor, both Elrond and Gil-galad are the wind trying to blow out the ember that is whatever Galadriel is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But they're actually spreading her. They're spreading the fire. Yeah. They're putting her in a spot where she can then be meeting Halbrand. And then she is also a wind to his ember that is going to make it so he's going to go to places and meet people that he probably wouldn't otherwise, right? And so I think it shows like that kind of domino effect. And I also think in what we see with the Harfoots, what we'll talk about later, I think that that's also like a parallel as well, where, hey, like this wouldn't happen if this didn't happen. And if this didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. And I think that that's a very Tolkien thing as well. Like, there's so many different things. Like, if Bilbo didn't spare Gollum, like, it's completely different. You know? There's so many things along the way where, hey, if this didn't happen, it pretty much fundamentally changes so much of what would have happened, right? And obviously, this isn't, like, a lot of the stuff that is happening is not canon. But I think it's totally fine. And I like how they're setting it up to be like, these are almost like cause and effect type things, right? And so I'm thinking, this is what my like harebrained theory is right now, is that Halbrand is a leader of men, and he's probably going to lead them to be evil. That's what I'm thinking, because he does have that kind of menacing vibe to him a little bit. And the fact that the Southlanders, they keep saying, like, hammering the point that, like, hey, these guys are kind of evil. And then you see a dude in like the city where Bronwyn is, and he kind of looks like him. Like, he's the dude with the messed up eye.
Yeah.
He kind of looks like him. So I don't know. Like, I definitely think that he's from that area. I think the other theory could be that maybe he's like Bronwyn's husband or something, because if he's from that town that's destroyed and he ran away. But the thing that's so weird is he's out on the water, like running away.
Far away.
It's so far away from at least where Bronwyn and Arondir are. So I don't know if that theory really holds a ton of water, but
because if he's so far away, right? It seems like the orcs, at least what we see of the Southlands plot, haven't super started their shit yet. It seems like it's just starting.
Like,
so I was wondering,
sieging people.
Like it doesn't seem like in the Southlands they're like, yeah, they've been fucking tearing our villages to shreds for years now or whatever, you know? Like, so I'm like, how quickly did he get out of the Southlands? I'm looking at it, kind of looking at this map a little bit here, just because I'm interested.
One of my theories is that maybe he knows that his people used to be evil or something, right? And that's why he's running away from it, right? Like, he doesn't want to be controlled by some greater power or whatever, so he thinks that in leaving or something, he's defying that.
I guess it's not that far of a journey. I'm looking at a map. I guess if he's going down out of the Bay of Belfalas, if he goes kind of south a bit, Belfalas, I think that maybe that's not as far of a journey to get away. So maybe it could have been recently that he was sent out of his.
There's also a river that goes up it, but that's weird. But that scene where they're confronting each other, This like feels like the most Galadriel moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
so far she's felt like very desperate to find Sauron, but in a very cold way, right? Whereas when she is like, I grieve with you, and that whole moment, it very much humanizes her, where I feel like we haven't really had a lot of moments of that. Like there's the scenes where she's a child, but pretty much she feels, at least to me, feels very like she's on the brink. This is something that she needs to do. Like it's all consuming for her, right?
Mm-hmm.
To where when in the first episode when her crew are like, "Hey, like please stop." She's like, "No." Then it takes another nudge for them to pull her humanity out, right? Like
Yeah.
and so I do like that they kind of have this moment where she does show that she it does humanize her, right? I love that scene a lot, and I hope we get more of that where she has more interpersonal connections, whereas right now it just seems like she's consumed by hate right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's bad, but I'm just saying, over time, I'm hoping that we see more of that character arc of her, and I'm hoping that part of that is maybe Celeborn.
We'll see, I guess.
Well, okay. One thing that I forgot to say that I wanted to say in the first episode, because we did it live instead.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have notes or anything for it. But the thing that's so weird, I was like remembering, like, okay, if Celeborn's not here, this is super like if he doesn't exist, it's incredibly short-sighted. Because unless they just are fundamentally changing a ton of the canon. Because Galadriel and Celeborn, their child, I can't remember her name right now. Celebrian, I think, is Elrond's wife. So like without Celeborn, there's no Celebrian, right? And with no Celebrian, there's no Arwen. You know what I mean? Like it's weird.
It is weird. I don't know if I think I would have rather not known that, just because I don't like the idea of, just because how friendly Elrond and Galadriel were in the first episode, and I'm like, oh, he marries her daughter? Like, that's a little, I don't know about that one, Chief. It just feels a little weird because, like, I'm imagining, like, you know, they're together and whatever, and, you know, his wife is like, oh, my mom, and he's like, yeah, I remember kicking ass with your mom back in the day, you know? Like, that's a little, you know, that's a little weird.
Well, you know what's even weirder?
Oh, no.
Elrond, his brother Elros, was the first. So, like, they're both half elves. Elrond is actually technically only half elf, but he chooses to be a full elf because basically the Valar are like, yo, if you're half elf, you need to choose whether or not you want to be a human or
an elf
right now.
Okay.
Right? Or an elf, I mean, right now. Elrond chooses to be an elf. Elros chooses to be a man.
Okay.
And he is the one who founds Numenor, which we haven't seen yet.
Oh, okay.
Right? So then, over all the kings of Numenor and then all the kings of the Dunedain.
Oh, no.
Then there's Aragorn, right?
Oh, no.
And then Elrond, his daughter is Arwen. So his brother's great grandson marries his daughter. Or not great grandson, grandnephew. Yeah. Yeah, that just like mental boomed a ton of people. It's a bit weird, right? Y'all thought Game of Thrones invented incest, guys. It's like thousands of years disconnected.
Yeah.
It's like 6,000 years disconnected or something.
Yeah.
Maybe even
on
7.
One bloodline, not on the other.
Yeah.
On the other, it's like a generation. Okay, yeah. This episode for Galadriel, we got to move on because we're This episode for Galadriel was a transitionary one, I would say. We introduced Halbrand,
for sure.
And she's moving to a new location, and I think that's something that we're going to see across this show because, like, since it's epic fantasy and we're going to be moving from location to location, sometimes there's going to be an episode where a character like doesn't do a whole ton.
Well, and because there's so many storylines too, I'm fine with that as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Let's talk about the Southlands. Because this was another one where there wasn't a ton, like it had a lot of screen time, but it wasn't like major plot progressions, you know? We're revealing the enemy of the orcs, really, to the show.
Yeah, like it. Not a lot happens, but
a lot happens in another, like, in a way,
well,
you know?
Yeah, like the impact that it has is big,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
what it means in the future, right? So, yeah, dude. Honestly, I'm just gonna straight up say this, dude. I've never watched a TV show and been like so uncomfortably like scared. You know what I mean? Like, I can watch horror films and not really get super like tense, like. But this dude was done really well. Between, you know, Theo, Bronwyn's son, just going berserk on the floor, and that being set up a whole episode ago.
Yeah.
And it is literally some fantasy, like it's some Skyrim shit, right? You're walking in Skyrim, and some little kid is like, man, there was like a lot of skeevers under the floorboards the other night. And then you're like, oh yeah, man. And then like later you come back, and like the Falmor have like killed everybody, right? Like you go into the tunnel, and then it like goes down into a whole dwarven ruin where the Falmor are, right? Like that's literally what would happen in Skyrim. Like that's literally what happens in this. And the fact that, you know, with the trailer, like seeing trailers for video games, movies, shows, or whatever, there's going to be epic moments that are ruined because you know what's happening, right? For me, it was the opposite of this. Because I knew that an orc was going to climb out from underneath their floorboards because of the trailer, I was immediately like, oh no. Like, he's talking about rats, and then they just dismiss it for another whole, like, hour and a half because it's in the next freaking episode. And this whole time, I'm like, oh my god, dude, it's not rats, dude. It's not rats underneath. And then they bring it up again, and I'm like, dude, it's not freaking rats, dude. Oh my god. Like, I'm sitting here pulling out my hair because I want him to know it's not rats. And then he goes berserk on the floorboards, dude. Chills, dude. Chills. You see the eye. Then it cuts back to Arondir. And that is incredibly creepy. And I said
he's in a horror movie.
He's straight up in a horror movie, dude. And me and Sean watched this a little bit right before, right?
Yeah.
Dude, what really does it, because a lot of shows, and even Lord of the Rings does this, right? Where in the first movie, when, you know, all the orcs are going to be coming up the tunnel because Pippin knocked down the thing in the mines of Moria, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You only see shadows of the goblins at first. So it's not like super scary. Like the noise and like the drums and stuff are what really carry it, right? And obviously it's for like a bigger reveal when the door bursts open. But like the fact that there was a noise down the tunnel, you look down the tunnel and it's just kind of slowly zooming in on the tunnel. There's the haze, then you see a shadow of a hand, and then you full on see the hand, and it like slowly goes onto the ground because, you know, the orc knows that he's there, but the orc doesn't want him to know that that they know.
Yeah,
and then he looks down the other hallway, and then it happens again. Like actually physically seeing something made it so much more scary. Into him instantly trying to run into rats when the rats of Mordor are running away. You know some shit is not okay, dude. Rats in Middle Earth running. Run, dude.
My favorite shot in that sequence is when he's trying to squeeze through that little opening, and you see there's another rat, like, in the area between the side of his head and his shoulder, desperately trying to squeeze past him. And it's like, it's such a little detail, but both times I've seen the episode, my eyes have been drawn to that and like been like, what the fuck? I'm really, like, as somebody that doesn't know a ton about the intricacies of like Lord of the Rings, I didn't realize they dug tunnels like that. So in the first episode, when you were like, that's not rats, I was like, what is Jason talking about? Like, I didn't get it. I was like, oh, not rats. Okay, whatever. And then when Arondir gets to the town in this episode and he goes down into the tunnels, I was like, oh, I think I know what that kid was hearing in the first episode.
Yep. Like, man, I couldn't sleep because there was rats. Like, think about, like, if you could see from like the perspective of being able to see through the floor or whatever, right? Like a wide shot of the house where you can also see through the ground.
A cross section.
Yeah. Like he's sleeping in bed trying to sleep, tossing and turning because of them digging and crawling underneath, like fucking orcs underneath the floor.
And Arondir finds that one dude's nail.
Yeah, dude. True horror.
True horror sequence. I think, again, we kind of talked about this. It's a little impacted because they showed a lot of Arondir in the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I think the scariest shot in the episode is kind of ruined if you've seen the trailers, which is when he comes out of the water and he backs up. And actually, it's a great shot. It's a masterclass in in filmmaking, but the trailer kind of ruins it, where he's backed up against the it's kind of backed up against this stuff. And then the bubbles start to come out of the water. So you're like, oh, God, there's something down there. And that alone is terrifying. But then you see that part of what he's backed against are hands, and they reach out and grab him. And that was in the trailer, unfortunately. So I knew there was a misdirect happening.
That part is ruined by the trailer, whereas I think the other scenes are enhanced by knowing that it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
The dread of it.
The dread of he's going in the tunnels. You're like, oh no. Yep. You know he's going to encounter orcs. This isn't going to be a good time, you know?
Right.
Let's talk about, because at the end of this episode, Arondir has been captured. That's the big thing. I want to talk about Theo.
Yeah, that's literally what I wanted to talk about.
What the fuck is going on with that kid, dude?
Dude, he's evil. Straight up, dude. He's got to be evil. And in a way where, imagine if, Pippin doesn't have the friends he has in the movies where, he needs to see the Palantir. It's the same thing. Where it's something that curiosity killed the cat, dude. It's something is bad inherently. You shouldn't look at it. You shouldn't go look at this.
Yeah.
But he does it. He goes out of his way. He literally steals it. Yeah. Because it's underneath in some dude's barn. He sees it once, he looks at it, he puts it back, then he shows this other kid, hey, there's this, right? There's this thing. They almost get caught. Then he just straight up steals the thing, has it in his own house, is looking at it. It's very similar to brooding over a Palantir or the One Ring or whatever, right? And before the scene before he goes berserk hitting the floor with the fire poker, he's just staring in the flame, brooding. No one who's not evil does this. No one's just sitting there staring in the fire with he's thinking about the damn sword or something, he's just, and then he just is berserk immediately, going ham on the floorboards, dude.
Man,
it's insane. I think that they're using the guise of his childhood to be no, he's good. Nah, bro, he is evil, bro.
Season 5 time jump, dude. He's
he is the mouth of Sauron, you know what I mean?
It's weird how the blade kind of sucks in his blood before it forms. That's fucking weird, dude.
What's strange, right, is so at this point the ring wraiths don't exist, right?
Yeah. So
and it very much is. They're very much invoking that it looks like a Morgul blade, right? It's a blade that can be kind of conjured with blood. It looks like it's a blood magic sword. Yeah, and it's just strange. There is a couple of swords in the Tolkien Legendarium that are cursed swords. There's literally a sword that speaks and ends up killing pretty much everybody who wields it, right? Everybody who wields it becomes a badass, but then eventually they die by that sword in some way, right? Okay. So I don't think that it's one of those, unless they're because I'm pretty sure they're both supposed to be destroyed in the War of Wrath, lost into the.
They're
sea
first age shit, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they're not near the sea, I'm there's no way. But also one thing that I did want to touch on, because when she's running back, it's the first time we really see any shots of the ruins that are around the town. There's one of almost a lion head kind of. And then there's one where it's a bird, it's depicting a bird eating a person. It looks like a human. It doesn't look like an orc. It's picking up and eating them. So I don't know, dude. I feel like they're on some ruins of some messed up shit, dude. Like,
Well, I mean,
I think it's an evil area.
that's what they were saying. Like in the first episode, they're like, look, our fucking ancestors followed Morgoth, but and that's why the elves were there.
The meta thing is that it's clearly that they're in Mordor.
Yeah,
That's where their part of the Southlands is. And so we're gonna see the transition of it. But yeah, it was just so weird to see that, and then everything that's going on. Well, the other thing that's a bit weird, and I kind of wish we would have been able to see it, like how they do it, where like the houses are like torn up. Like there was an earthquake, but they just have like tunnels underneath. So are they like planting explosives or something? Like do they have some type of monster like that's like breaking up the ground and stuff? Like who knows, dude? That's crazy.
So the thing about this part that I just want to touch on before we move on is we get our first good look at an orc in this episode. When Bronwyn and Theo fucking badass fight sequence.
Such a good scene.
First of all. Love that they showed that, like, we see Aragorn, or we see like Legolas and Gimli like making a joke out of fighting orcs. They're like, 1, 2, 3. They're having their counting, like their count off,
right,
competition. But for like normal people, these things are a fucking threat. Like it takes the two of them.
Yeah,
like when he flips that table through across the room. Dude, and I mean, Theo's like evil, like for sure. But dude, when he brought the rope down, dude, to hang the orc, and then he jumps down and pulls the rope, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was raw. It was very raw. Dude. I like that neither of them seem very helpless either. Like,
no, they're fighting.
They're fighting for their life, and I do like that Bronwyn doesn't just abandon her child.
No, she stays behind to help. The orc looks good, I think. I think you said there was one shot where it looks a little plasticky.
There's one shot where it looks a little scuffed. Like, it definitely looks like it's like a person wearing a mask. It's like right before it ends up being killed. But before that, I'm like, oh my god, dude, this looks so freaking good. But I know that like this orc seemed like it was like a different type of orc, right? Like, it's one of the tunnel digging ones. Like, its eyes are very...
It's like a scout or something. It's like...
Yeah, it seems like its eyes aren't good, right?
Yeah.
Because it mainly digs tunnels, right? That would make sense to me, right? Like, it hasn't been out in the light. It doesn't have very good eyes.
No,
it's because it normally is, like, digging these tunnels and stuff. And that's why he can't find Theo when Theo's hiding, right?
Yeah.
That makes it way more believable. And then... the noises happening with Bronwyn is how he ends up finding Bronwyn, right?
Yeah.
But then in the trailers, we also see that there's other orcs, like the dude who is he was like the screenshot. He's like in like the slave camp or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that there is confirmation just from the trailers that there is orcs that look like that. That when I think of orcs, that's what I think of literally. So I'm glad that there is also these like what seem like very, very high quality, high budget orcs as well.
All right, let's transfer to kind of Elrond's storyline, which goes through a couple different locations. Well, 2 different locations. It starts off with him in a Region with Celebrimbor. I want to bring out Professor Jason really quick, the lore master himself.
Okay.
Because during this episode, we get a little bit of talk from Celebrimbor about how he wants to be remembered in the same way that Fëanor is for his work with the Silmarils.
Yeah.
So if you can give like some more background with Fëanor and the Silmarils, because they're just briefly mentioned in the episode.
In the very first episode of The Rings of Power, we see the Trees of Light.
Okay.
When Galadriel's brother, Fingon, is walking up the hill and you see the trees. That's in Valinor, right? Like the heaven of Middle-earth. Fëanor, who is, I believe, he's either the grandfather or great-grandfather of Celebrimbor.
Okay.
He is like the best craftsman in all of Middle-earth, period, bar none, right? The only other person who's not even really a person that could do better is Aule the Smith, right? And he's the one who literally created the dwarves.
He's also brought up, but you've also, if anybody wants more information about how do you say it?
Aule?
Aule, if you want to hear, because he's also brought up during the Kaza Doom sequence.
Yeah.
Listen to episode 0 because Jason went in. He talked about Aule in there. He talked about the creation of the dwarves.
Yeah. So Feanor makes the Silmarils using the light of the trees. And those trees are essentially the sun and moon. Because the sun and moon don't exist. And the trees, the light of the trees was just like completely pure. And he basically just absorbed their light into these 3 crystals called the Silmarils. And in doing so, he made, like, it was one of those, how they depict it is as if it was such a great work that even he couldn't do it again. Like, it was a one-time thing. Whatever he used to encase the light, it was so beautiful that people kill for it, literally.
Okay.
And Feanor, they're like his prized possession. And Feanor is just an elf, right? Morgoth, like the OG baddie, sees them and is like, I am going to do anything for these Silmarils, right? And he ends up stealing them, killing Feanor's father to steal them, and then like, he also destroys the trees with Ungoliant, who's like a big spider, who is basically, imagine Shelob from the 3rd movie, way bigger. Right? Way more evil, like Lovecraftian type spider, just super scary, right? So they kill the trees, sucking the light out of them. I guess I got the order wrong, right? So they kill the trees, then everyone's like, oh my god, like this is terrible, right? The literal gods are like, hey, Feanor, you're the only person in the world who has the light of the trees inside your Silmarils. Like they summon him, right? Please give us the Silmarils so that we can restore the trees, right? And he's just like, nah. Nah. If you do that, you're essentially killing me. Like this is like my life's work.
So these are like the first One Ring, like he basically all consuming.
He's basically saying, kill me first, and then you can have them, right?
Yeah.
And then, like he says that to the gods.
Yeah.
And then, while that's happening, Morgoth sneaks over and steals the Silmarils, killing Feanor's father. And then Feanor's like berserk, like he's like, you guys, like he probably thinking like they're in on it maybe, and then he's like, no, they're so stupid. Like I hate everybody. He literally makes an oath, a vow, and makes all of his sons take this vow, like a blood oath, right? Where they will not stop until the House of Feanor have the Silmarils back. They'll kill anybody. Elf, man, orc, anything to get the Silmarils back into their family, right?
Okay.
And they end up having to do terrible things because of it, right? So the Silmarils are on this level of, imagine the ring, but of complete pure light that it pulls out even the evil in people in comparison. Like it draws people to do these like terrible things in order to have them. And Morgoth is so enthralled by them that he's like just stares at them for weeks. He literally ends up like putting one in his crown, and Baron and Luthien actually end up stealing it. I think he actually puts all 3 in, and they steal one of them. Okay. But yeah, anyway, the Silmarils end up getting lost. One gets cast into the sea. One gets and I honestly, now saying this, this might be what in the end of the episode, this might actually be, and what people are going to go berserk. So what one of the sons does, after having killed people to get back the Silmaril, he's so disgusted with everything that's happened, everything he's had to do in order to get these Silmarils back, he casts himself into essentially a volcano, like a great fiery pit, right?
With the Silmaril?
With the Silmaril, right? But that's in Beleriand.
Okay.
Like, he does it in Beleriand, which is sunken under the sea, right?
Yeah.
If they're trying to say that the dwarves found, because it, like, went through the magma chambers underground, and they found it in the Misty Mountains, it will be pretty cringe. But if they found a Silmaril, that would be ridiculous. Anyway, and then one of them is sent up into the sky and becomes a star, right?
Okay.
So they don't exist anymore, but they're like the most legendary things ever. So Celebrimbor is like, I want to be on this level, right?
Yeah. Oh boy. He wants to build a tower for a forge.
Yes.
I wonder what that's for. I wonder what this show is called.
Well, he doesn't even.
Well, yeah, no, obviously he doesn't like. He would not have the idea to do this yet, but I wonder what is going to be used for.
Yeah, I wonder what is going to happen. True.
Yeah. Not that it's being made specifically for that purpose.
I'll say I don't hate Celebrimbor right now, but he hasn't won me over.
Okay.
I don't really like his design as much. My preference is definitely very much how he's depicted in like Shadow Mordor, Shadow of War.
Okay.
That's the only other time he's really ever been depicted heavily, except for like drawings and stuff. But typically, they kind of in those games they kind of went with what people normally draw him as, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long brown hair, kind of like Elrond looking, but even more like fair looking. Like he's even better looking than Elrond usually, right? Like
yeah.
Well, I remember before knowing what Celebrimbor looked like, I was thinking, okay, I knew what Elrond looked like, and I knew Elrond had short hair, right? And I'm thinking, okay, maybe only what they're gonna do in this world is only elf lords and like at least male elf lords are ones that grow out their hair. I could see that, right? But then Celebrimbor like breaks that, so it's like I don't even know. It kind of just seems like maybe people just randomly cut their hair whenever, which is like pretty realistic, right? But like. I don't know. I think if Celebrimbor had long hair, I'd be down, dude. Straight up. Also, I think the actor is still a little bit old, in my opinion. They're supposed to be unaging people. Yeah, I'm excited. The Elrond stuff in this is so good.
Dude, so then, Elrond is like, because Celebrimbor says, I want it to be done by the spring. And he's like, well, you're going to need some men for that. He's like, well, the king will give him to, me. And Elrond's like, have you ever thought of going outside of the race or the elves for it? And then we get fucking incredible music as we go to Khazad-dûm. And then Elrond goes inside and he has to like he calls for the right of Sigyn Turog because the dwarves are like, fuck you, you're not coming in. We learn the reason for that a little bit later, which I want to talk about that scene in a bit because it's one of my favorite scenes. But when Elrond finally gets into Khazad-dûm and Celebrimbor is left behind, dude, the music that plays as I'm listening to it right now, as the camera pans around and it reveals Khazad-dûm for the first time, another jaw-dropping moment of just pure, just wonder put onto the screen. Like, I can't even, it might be my favorite moment of the episode.
It is really good. Well, and like from like a huge nerd lore perspective, Khazad-dûm is where the very first dwarf like wakes up and creates the original Durin.
Yeah.
And so it's like a very sacred place. And in front of Khazad-dûm is where, for people who've seen the Hobbit movies, when they're trying to fight to get back Moria, like that's Khazad-dûm, and that's why they're fighting so hard and losing so many people to try and reclaim it, because it is such a like hallowed place basically for dwarves.
And it's there that we meet Prince Durin. Durin. I love Prince Durin. He's so immediately from the moment when he walks in, like the voice is perfect, the look is perfect. Yeah. Like the dwarves are short,
dwarf ever.
Yeah. And all the dwarves are short but wide, and they're like, these motherfuckers are like compact, and you're like, God damn, this is awesome. I'm glad that they held the dwarves back from the first episode, and they really gave it to us in this one. And I hope that we get something similar with the Numenor next week. And we get into like some classic fantasy shit. I love this rock breaking battle between Elrond and Durin. Like, it's like it's just perfect fantasy shit. Like, it's kind of really stupid, but like really endearing. And there's something about it, man. There's something about it. But I think like the highlight of the episode, like I really enjoyed last week. I think the highlight was the speech between, or the conversation between Elrond and Galadriel, where they're talking about like why she needs to go back to Valinor. And I think the highlight conversation for me in this episode is when Elrond and Doran are on the lift leaving Khazad-dûm, and Dorian is like, yeah, dude, we were friends, but it's been 20 years. Like, I got married. Like, I've had 2 kids and you weren't there. And he says 20 years might be a blink of an eye in the life of an elf, but like, you've missed my life. Which I think it just, like, he's saying it when I'm watching it for the first time, and I'm like getting a little misty eyed. I'm like sad for this guy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can see how hurt he is by this. And I love
You believe
that
it
exchange.
100%.
Yeah,
It's such a good acting performance.
Yes, 100%. And it's like kind of a trope in fantasy, but it's a really good one. So fuck it. I like it.
Yeah.
You know?
If it works, it works.
And I mean, we meet the princess. Is it Disa?
Disa, yeah.
Disa. I like her. I think she's a lot of fun. I know people. She was another like Arondir that certain people on the internet were not fans of before seeing any performance.
Yeah, the marketing, dude. Their marketing team just did not do them any favors in that aspect, right? They at first were constantly saying the first female dwarf to ever be depicted on screen, which just was not correct, right? So then the next time they went on a circuit, they were like, the first black female dwarf, which is true. She's the first black female dwarf. I love her, dude. And I'm
great.
so sad that the marketing team have like poisoned a lot of people who are just not going to be super fair to the show against her, because she does such a great job. I love her character. I love that they, instead of giving all the female dwarves beards, which I think is fine either way, I do like that they still give her like sideburns, basically.
Yeah, she's got kind of sideburns going on. It's pretty cool.
I like it. Yeah, I love her design. Her like contacts they give her too. I like those too.
Yes. I like that she's kind of the bridge between Doran and Elrond.
She brings out the best in him for sure, right?
Yeah.
And I like that she was just like considered to be like a really, really good like resonator or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's how she caught his eye, and then I really like it.
I think so far the show is nailing like the couples. Like, I think Bronwyn and Arondir both have great chemistry, and they work really well together. And I think Doran and Disa have really good chemistry as well, and they bring out the best in each other, and it's great. I love it. And then kind of like the last thing to talk about, I guess, is Prince Doran is won over, and he goes to speak with King Doran, his father, and which I know is like a thing. But there's like some implication here that the dwarves are hiding something from the elves. You know, that something's going on, and then there's this box that's opened, and there's something glowing in the box, and there's like everybody's wondering what's in the box. You know, I guess the first thought I have is mithril. I know you brought up it'd be really stupid, but it could be a Silmaril. We've brought up the Arkenstone.
Like, there's no way. So what's weird? One thing I did want to address for sure is, so like Elrond isn't known for having like the relationship between Durin the Fourth, who's like Prince of Durin, and Elrond is like not canon, right? The canon relationship is between King Durin the Third and Celebrimbor, and because of their relationship, and it was so unprecedented. It was just between both their love of craftsmanship that they made what's called the High Road, which is the road that the Fellowship take, and they go to the door, and it's the door made where you can only see it with the right moonlight, and it's speak friend and enter, right?
Yeah.
And that's made by Celebrimbor as a symbol of their friendship, right? Which I think it's fine. I do like that, especially like knowing what happens. I'm fine with them giving more character development to Elrond rather than Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
And I 100% believe it, right? Like, if it was not canon and it was done poorly, I'm pissed off. It's not canon, but it's done incredibly well, and I love it. So that was something that I definitely wanted to talk about. One thing that I was trying to figure out, so what I was worried about was I wanted to double check and see if his father, because I was pretty sure Kurfin, I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, it's either Kurfin or not, because I'm pretty sure Kurfin is like a badass. But it's actually his other brother, Maedros, who casts himself into a fiery pit with the Silmaril. Because there's one other thing with the Silmarils, is that any hand that touches it that is not pure, it would burn them, right?
Oh, okay.
So, like, when Morgoth is, like, consumed by them, looking at them, he also can't touch them. And so it's, like, because he's evil, right? So there's, like, that love-hate where it's, like, I love it so much, but I can't even touch it, right?
Yeah.
But because Maedros and Maglor, who were the two that who finally got them, they literally, like, murdered other elves to get them. Like, they were, like, stolen and stuff. It burned their hands, right? And so, like, they're in agony because it burns their hands, and also all this terrible stuff happened, and it was all because of these Silmarils. Like, he cast himself into the fire there, so I was a little worried that if it was Kurfin who did it,
there would be that connection there.
That there would be that connection where Celebrimbor knows his father casts himself into the fire with the Silmaril, and so, like, maybe that's like, oh, this is my birthright or something to have this, right? And that maybe they use the Silmaril to ignite the flame of the forge or something in some way. That was the angle that I was thinking of, right? Like, it looks like they're gonna go with building the forge, right? Because how else do the Rings of Power get made if the forge doesn't get built? But I was thinking, okay, what would really put it over the edge is if there was, like, obviously it's either going to be an Arkenstone / Silmaril type thing where they're going to say, okay, this is the Silmaril, it came through the magma, or hey, every mountain range has a heart of the mountain, and hey, they found it. It's like Arkenstone 2, right?
Yeah, Electric
Which
Boogaloo,
actually it'd be more like Arkenstone 1 or 0. Because
0.2.
It would have been the first one to be found. But anyways, it's gonna be either that or it's gonna be Mithril, which is what Frodo's shirt is made out of, that saves him from being killed by the boar. Or not the boar, the troll. But yeah, it's like the most strong metal of all time. So I'm thinking, if it is Mithril, it's like, okay, this forge is going to be created with Mithril, and that's what's going to give it that next level power to be able to make the Rings of Power.
That would make sense. What I was kind of thinking is that what we were going to see kind of the ramping up of mining, because I know that they at some point are starting to run out of Mithril. And so I was wondering if that's what was going to be happening, and they were going to be digging too deep to find it.
Not necessarily that they're like running out of Mithril, they're just following the veins, right?
Yeah, not running out, but like the stuff close to the surface is running out. Like they're having to go deeper and deeper to find it, and that is how we're going to connect in. We saw in the trailer what looks like somebody waking the Balrog. If them digging deeper and deeper and deeper to follow these veins of Mithril is going to be how we get introduced to a Balrog at some point.
Yeah. Well, because, basically what they're doing is they're bridging the gap between Durin the Third and Durin the Fourth, because Durin the Fourth is born canonically in the Third Age, which is when Lord of the Rings happens. And it's supposed to be a couple 100 years before the actual events of the Fellowship of the Ring, right? Because, like, obviously it's already Moria, and it's not nice at all. And the Balrog is called Durin's Bane because, spoilers, it kills somebody named Durin, so well, I'm assuming he's gonna kill the dad and not the son, because the son's supposed to live and be a dope ass Durin, so who knows. And also, I love him. If
he's so good,
Durin the Fourth dies, dude, I'm gonna be so pissed off.
I think everybody will.
Such a good actor. I love him. He's the most dwarf ever.
The last storyline to really hit on is with Nori. Or Nori. I was giving it the elf
name, yeah.
But I was like, no, they just call him
Eleanor.
Yeah. Nori. Well, man, this show really wants me to think that man that came out of the sky is a bad guy.
Yeah.
She's continuing to nurse him back to health, and like kind of the end of the episode is her being like, "All right, I'm gonna help you find these stars." But I mean, throughout the episode, he doesn't really do anything good. You know, I'm convinced he breaks her dad's leg.
I don't think so. I think it's a cause and effect.
The show, like, dude, he's like holding that thing up, and then he draws that line, the thing snaps, and then that dude's leg just fucking twists. It like does it like
it's
a
just
90-degree turn.
Yeah, no, like his ankle definitely breaks, but I think it's just more like it slips, breaks under the weight of it.
I don't know, dude. It doesn't even look like he slips. It just looks like the ankle just twists 90 degrees out of nowhere. I don't know, dude.
I could see it either
bad
way.
Vibes.
I'm not 100%. Like, I could see it being that. I don't think it is, but I'm not 100% against it.
I hope that it's not.
Yeah.
Just because it's very, like, they're really hammering it into me, and I'm like,
to me, it's a cause and effect
too
that
much.
Because Nori isn't at home, this is what happens.
This is what happens.
That he is physically doing it, that he is doing it. He's the reason it happened.
Yeah.
Because she goes to help him. But I don't think he's the actual...
Like, he didn't
physically
do it with magic.
Doing it. It's not he didn't, like, accidentally will it to happen or something, right?
I think you're probably right, but I do think the show is trying to draw that
If his leg starts corrupting, then it's him. Okay?
If they're like, oh, it seems to be growing. There's like these black tendrils going up my leg. I don't know what's going on, guys.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's him. So I guess we should more talk about if we like.
Well, the other
obviously
thing
we don't know a ton more about him now, but go ahead.
The other thing he does is he sees they've got these firefly lamps, and he kind of talks to them and to the fireflies, and he gets them to form the stars in the sky. And it pretty much Nori is going to, like, it's setting up Nori going to find where you can see these stars and take the stranger there. But then all the fireflies just kind of drop out of the sky dead.
Yeah.
And you're a little bit like, I don't know about this guy again, So
yeah.
I feel like they're really hard selling that he's a bad guy, and that's why I don't think he is. I think he's a blue wizard or something.
Yeah.
I actually feel more confident that he's a blue wizard after this episode. Because after the first episode, I was like, he's fucking Sauron. Like, because the connections were there, like, it wasn't too
the shot
face.
Literally looks like the eye of Sauron when you like saw it from above. Yeah,
it wasn't too much, but it was a lot. But this episode, I think, goes from there's a lot of hints that it's Sauron to there are too many hints that it's Sauron to where it's a red herring. They want you to think this guy is bad news, and I think he's good news. I think he's good news, and he just doesn't have full control of himself yet. And once he does, he's gonna be good news for our heroes. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, because to put my lore hat back on, Gandalf, Radagast, Saruman, they are Maya. So like they are the best way to equate them is they're kind of like angels, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not gods, but they serve a lowercase g god, right?
Yeah.
They follow them, right? So when they're in Valinor, they're also kind of more of like a formless being, right? Like they might take different forms. They're not sitting in Valinor as old men. The reason they go to Middle Earth as old men is because it's like shows their stature, their wisdom. They're also going to be, if they go there as elves, men are not going to trust them, right?
Yeah.
And the point of them going there was to fight against Sauron. That's why they're sent there. They're sent there to stop Sauron. So Sauron is usually, or like is canonically, already done terrible things. And so the Valar send them as messengers and to help them. And basically their number one mission is to stop Sauron, right? That's their prime directive.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that they put on these flesh and bone bodies, and maybe that's what is happening with this mysterious man, right? He's being sent. He got sent there in a meteor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is just coming to grips with being a human in a human body, right? Or like in a flesh and bone body, I guess just to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that he just doesn't have full control over, and he knows the language in Valinor, but he's still kind of waking up, I guess I should say. Like, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it, but that's what I'm assuming, is that he is one of the blue wizards, probably, because I think if it's any of the other ones, you're kind of fundamentally like, or it's Gandalf, I guess. Like, if he's Gandalf, I guess I'm fine with it as well.
I don't know if I'm fine with it.
Like,
I think I kind of hate it if it's Gandalf.
I could see it, because it's like he has this relationship with hobbits and Harfoots or whatever, right? Like, I don't know. I could see it. I wouldn't absolutely hate it. I could see it. I think that in the Elrond's part where he talks about the sapling and how the sapling
Grows
is from the tree in Linden, and that the tree in Linden is a symbol of their vitality and their strength.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's more just the meteor isn't what caused that to happen, but that because the tree is a symbol of their strength and vitality, and that corruption that happened is kind of more just like a symbol that, like, hey, something just like happened that just weakened you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's supposed to also symbolize, okay, like, you just kind of lost Galadriel. Like, I don't really think Galadriel's coming back to Linden ever.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. But I think that they try to set that up so that you think that it's related to the meteor, but the Galadriel stuff is happening at the same time, so that still works really well. I really like that, actually.
Yeah, I think that that's what it is, because what happens canonically is she leaves Linden to go see Celebrimbor, and she is also there during that time frame, right? But then eventually what she ends up doing before all the craziness that ends up happening in Eregion and in Khazad-dûm, she actually goes through Khazad-dûm, ends up on the other side, and founds Lothlorien.
Okay.
In the Forest of Lorien, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so she does it with both her daughter and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. I absolutely loved this episode, man.
Yeah, me too.
I also think one thing I do want to mention that I was like immediately like, oh my gosh, in the book that Sadoc, I don't remember how she says it. It's Sadoc.
Yeah, like the elder Harfoot. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the term they gave him is. Is basically he finds, like, I think they call him a pathfinder or something like that, or like migrate finder, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's supposed to read the signs of the stars and to read the signs of the land to know when they're supposed to migrate, right? Because they're supposed to be migrant people, and they go from different place to different place because there are places that are not safe for a Harfoot in certain times of the year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's always looking for the signs, and in the book when he's looking up at the stars and he's saying, like, it's like they're looking for something, right? There's literally a star constellation that looks like the sign that the guy writes in the dirt, and that he puts in the sky. And then also next to those is like a bunch of star symbols in the book that look like the star symbols that he was scratching into the rock that you only kind of see for a second. And there's like the weird, like, whispering, like Sauron, like whispering, basically. So, like, it's supposed to feel real creepy.
Here's my question about all that. At this point, how strong is Sauron? Because like, if I think about, like, hey, this guy's actually probably a good guy, because I think there's too many signs that he's a bad guy. It's like, it's too much. is it possible that Sauron knows that this another Maiar has just arrived and is like, fuck it, and is like trying to fuck with him magically? Like, if the whispering is Sauron trying to like get at him while he's still fresh and new to the world and be like, fuck you, what the fuck are you doing? This is my shit. Get the fuck out of here.
I kind of like that idea.
Is he strong enough to be doing that at this point?
That's not like a canonical power that he has, really.
Mm-hmm.
If he was holding like the One Ring or something, maybe, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But especially not at this point. I don't think he would be strong enough without the One Ring, right?
I was just, because the whispering definitely sounds like, you know, fucking black speech whispering. And so that's kind of why I was like, maybe, because it doesn't look like the stranger is super into the black speech whispering. It kind of, you get the feeling that, but I was wondering if maybe like it's Sauron fucking with the new Maiar that just arrived that's going to fuck up his plans.
I kind of like that idea, right? I don't think that that's what it is.
Yeah.
I could see it being that. At this point, the Second Age starts when Balerion sinks, right?
Uh-huh.
And then 500 years into... I'm just... This is from memory, so I might be wrong on the dates, but it's like 500 years into it is when he conquers Mordor and starts building Barad-dûr, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes like 500 years or something to complete Barad-dûr, right? And so Sauron, like, magically should be still pretty strong. Not as strong as he is with the One Ring or something. But you even see, like, in The Hobbit, like, because obviously, like, in the Hobbit movies, it's not exactly canon either, but even when he's just like a spirit, he's dominating,
this stuff,
right?
The stuff at fucking with the necromancer shit, Dol Guldur. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what happens is he's in Dol Guldur to start. Actually,
yeah. Okay.
He's in Dol Guldur to start, even before he makes the One Ring.
Okay.
So he's in Dol Guldur. Then he ends up going to Barad-dûr, or like to Mordor and building Barad-dûr. So then when he's defeated, it makes sense that he would go back to Dol Guldur, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the White Council end up casting him out, and then he goes back to Mordor and end up rebuilding Barad-dûr, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. If I had to guess, I don't think anybody that we've seen at all is Sauron. I think Sauron is hiding. He's biding his time. I think he was in the ice place that they were in.
You think he was there when they were there, or just at one point?
Yeah, I think he was there. Like, I think he was hiding. Because when you see the very first, when Galadriel's doing her voiceover, the area in which he's standing looks just like and it might just be like a asset reuse, I guess, or just like that he was there at one point, right? Because obviously that is the symbol, right?
Yeah.
I could see him just being there, just hiding deep inside, right? Because that's literally what happens with Morgoth in Angband, which is like the original Dark Lord's fortress, right?
Uh-huh.
He gets beaten back and killed, and they think all of the orcs and everybody is dead. They're like, we haven't seen one in ages. But really, they were just hiding so deep down in the fortress that they didn't know. And they were just rebuilding. They're just rebuilding. He's literally breeding dragons in there. Nobody even knows. Like, he's literally creating dragons. So I could see it being that he's just deep down in there, and that, like, the snow troll that was in there is just, like, one that's, like, doing his own thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I could see them hiding somewhere. Even, like, the orc that's in the wall, yeah, he's actually the door. You know what I mean? Like, I can even see that, right? And I think that we're also supposed to think that as well, because Galadriel is even like, I'm going back there, even if it means on my own, because I think that he's in the north still. So I don't think Sauron has actually been on screen. The other thing that makes me think that too is the fact that the orcs are clearly, like, having a plan. They clearly have a leader of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's just like a Gothmog or like Azog type orc who's just, he's smart. He's a leader, right?
Yeah.
I could see that, because the Nazgul don't exist, like the Ringwraiths don't exist. I could see it being some like Captain Orc type character, or Sauron's literally like, yo, this is what we're doing, right? And just like biding his time, building his army up.
Yeah.
And I think what happens, and what and you said this as well, that Arondir, you get an idea of what is going to happen to him for the next couple episodes because of the trailer, right? Like you get what's going to happen. I think what ends up happening is, you know, they look like they're just in holes in the ground that have been dug out, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where the orcs are that we originally thought might have been cultists or something.
Yeah.
It's pretty much confirmed with having seen what that one orc was wearing in
that it's
the house, that they are orcs, right? That skull helmet is an orc thing. And I think they're just like capturing humans to dig out these big pits and everything to keep slowly expanding. Like they're kidnapping people, they're building, and then Arondir is gonna end up fighting back. Maybe he frees some people, or I don't know, maybe he even dies. Who knows, right? Like, but
what Arondir.
Yeah. Then there's also that part of the trailer where we saw the glove that very much looked like, yo, this is probably Sauron's glove or like a Nazgul.
Oh, walking through like the
in between the
orcs,
the orcs, and they're kind of all like bowing type deal.
And the camera pans up, and it's Theo. I think that's a good place to wrap things up. I mean, I'm really excited for next week. We'll keep on Sauron watch for sure, though.
Let us know who you guys think Sauron is. If we have seen Sauron, again, join the Discord. We have a couple different channels where we talk about Rings of Power. And yeah, let us know who you think Sauron is. If we've seen him, if we haven't.
I want to know about Sauron. I also want to know about what you guys are thinking about the Stranger. If you guys are on our side, you think he is not big trouble for our friends, the main characters, and we're just they're trying to misdirect us. I want to know if you guys agree with us on that as well, and just your general thoughts on the first 2 episodes. Hopefully, we'll be able to read them before we talk about episode 3 next week.
Thank you so much for watching. Again, join our Discord. We talk about a bunch of different things in there. Rings of Power. We have like the Kingdom Hearts stuff. We talk about all different types of stuff, like video games, Marvel stuff. Come hang out. There's some of the coolest people I've met on the internet in there. Also follow us on YouTube, Super SpikeGhetti Bros. Follow us on Twitch, Super SpikeGhetti Bros. And also on Twitter, SpikeGhetti Bros. Drop the super. Also check out the Patreon, again, Super SpikeGhetti Bros.
Yeah, pick that super back up that you dropped for Twitter.
Yeah, we had to bring it back. You know?
As for me, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Sean_AFK. Our cover art was done by our good friend Alx. So follow Alx on Twitter. It is at ALX_Beegboy, BEEGBOI, but there's a link in the description as well. So you guys can just go down there to find that. And our awesome goated intro music that is definitely on this episode was done by our good friend Fabio and his partner Jesse. You should follow Fabio on Twitter at Fabio the Iguana. There will be a link in the description, and also a link to Fabio and Jesse's partnership Twitter account. They both compose music at MVM_studio. There will be a link to that as well in the description, or go to their website, meadowvistamedia.com, and there will be a link to that as well. There'll be a link for all that stuff.
They're juiced.
They do awesome work.
We love our new intro. It's amazing.
We love it so much. It's so good.
But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, especially for making it all the way to the end again. We will see you next week. Enjoy your 11Cs. We'll see you next week for Second Breakfast.